But come on. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Faces for Autism Streaming with Love Telethon. I'm Jacob Hackett. You've heard from many individuals this evening, all coming from all different walks of life. You've heard their stories. You've heard their strengths. You've heard where they need help. My next guest, he used to be an aide to former mayor, now Assemblyman Don Guardian in Atlantic City. Now his main focus is educating and teaching the world about Down syndrome. Here to tell us more on what his advocacy efforts are and how can we help as a community. Please welcome Chris Filicello. Chris, thank you for being here.
Hey, Jacob, thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. My first question, Chris, give us, as a starter, a little background on, your involvement with the Down syndrome community.
Sure. So I have currently I have 4 boys, and my second oldest is Mateo. Mateo is 5 years old, and 5 years ago we found out the diagnosis prenatal that he was going to have Down syndrome. Immediately, I saw it as a blessing from God. I knew God had a great plan for us, my wife and I, and so we started to prepare for him to come into the world with the idea of there will be no limits for Mateo. So he was born, he had some medical issues early on. Within his first year of life, he had 7 or 8 surgeries to really get some of those medical issues corrected and under control. And then around that time, about 10 months old, we started reading books to him. My wife had found a program called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. And so we made it our goal to read him 1,000 books starting at 10 months old before he turned 5, before kindergarten started in September of that year when he was able to go. And so we actually read 7,000 books in that time. Our goal was 1,000. We exceeded it by 6,000. And really, we would read 5 to 10 kids' books to him in the morning, 5 to 10 kid books at night. And that's how we accomplished that basically every day. And so we can now see some of the fruit of that labor. He communicates very well. He's very intelligent. He's very aware of what's going on. And I'll get to in a moment how we got him into general education. But, that was from the onset, we said there will be no limits on Mateo, and we're going to start doing stuff now to prepare him for the future. And along the way, we were blessed enough to become part of different organizations that really highlighted Mateo and others with Down syndrome. The National Down Syndrome Society posted Mateo's picture twice in Times Square as part of their effort to bring awareness to individuals with Down syndrome. Mateo became an ambassador for Nothing Down a few years ago, and we were very proud to be part of that organization. Mateo has also done a modeling gig for some socks. He put on some socks and just let his personality shine through during the photo shoot. And those photos are still being used today. And as it came time to go to school, closer to school, the summer before, I wanted to get him involved in sports. So I enrolled him in a summer baseball camp. And honestly, it's one of the best things we've done so far, because in that camp, he was able to meet about 3 or 4 really nice kids who a few weeks later he would end up going to school with, and they were either A, in his class, or B, in his grade in kindergarten, that he already formed relationships with out on the baseball field. And so when it was time for him to go to school, he couldn't wait, and he transitioned very well into it, because again, ahead of time, we did things to prepare for him going into school. Now, him going to school in the beginning was somewhat of a challenge. The special education team did not want him to go into general ed right out of the gate. And the reason is he was going to the JCC and did very well there until about 3 years old, and then COVID hit. And then he was home for a year and a half. So unfortunately, he lost a lot of the routines that he was accustomed to at the JCC. And so when he was ready to go back to kindergarten or enter kindergarten for the first time, he wasn't quite into the routines as he had been. And so they were recommending that he go into a multiple disabled room for most of his time in school to learn how to become a student. And we were absolutely opposed against that. We wanted him from day one to be part of the mainstream. We wanted him to be included right off the bat with all his other peers, because it's kindergarten, right? They're all going to be learning. They say everything you need to know you learn in kindergarten. So right off the bat, let's throw him in the mix. You know, I'm sure there was other kids that stayed home during the pandemic that are now going back to school. You know, we don't want him to be behind in any way, shape, or form. So let's put him in the general education and let's get him the support he needs. And so we actually had to fight for that. It took about 2 months. He was going to school. Luckily, we had a really good principal who understood that, you know, he did need some kind of support, and she was able to locate specific aides for us, an aide that is still with him to this day. And so, you know, we fought so that he could get an IEP, but also be included in the general population, in the general education with his other peers. And that's where he is still to this day. And he absolutely loves going to school. He literally is one of the only kids that still runs to the front door, excited to see his friends and see his teachers. And just at the end of the day, I usually pick him up. They actually have him by the, there's like a bench inside as parents are coming to pick up kids. And Mateo has his sort of VIP bench, and he literally gives everybody a hug as they're leaving for the day, or the kids stop by and say, bye, Mateo, bye, Mateo. So he's been a real blessing to the community, and the community has really embraced him, and we're very thankful for that. Whether it was the baseball coach, or actually I also signed him up for soccer. And so I was his soccer coach, and just the kids on the soccer team embraced him and really, you know, showed him love. So, you know, we're focusing our efforts on trying to prepare Mateo for the future. Obviously, one day we're not going to be here, and you know, we want to make sure he's fully prepared. He has one older brother and 2 younger brothers. So, you know, as a family, we're just trying to do everything that we can to support him. And he gives back in just pure love and joy. He's just an amazing little boy. And we're very thankful and blessed.
Chris, that's wonderful. And that's why we're here tonight, friends. We're here to hear success stories like that. Hey, you may have to fight for your rights in education, but please don't give up. That is why you have IEPs and some very, very good case managers, and even just as you said, Chris, very good administration in the staff, or excuse me, in the schools that truly care. So that's wonderful. And I do a lot of work in schools myself, and I've always been a huge advocate for inclusion. It's so necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention we found an advocate. Her name is Sarah Joe, and she was really a bulldog on our behalf, knowing the laws, knowing different cases, knowing different situations where students were accepted into the classroom, you know, not having to prove yourself. And, you know, she was sort of our ace in the hole. And at the end of the day, the parents have the power to sign off on the IEP. You know, we learned the difference between a 504 and an IEP, and we realized that the parents hold all the power. You know, you can fight for what you want, and you don't have to sign it until you are happy and agree with the plan. Even if there's 15 people around the table, it's you versus them, you still hold all the power, because at the end of the day, you're the one that can or cannot sign off on it. And the law in New Jersey, at least, is every child needs to be educated by law. So one way or another, our son's going to get educated, and we want him to get educated to the best of his ability. And we believe that's through general education with support. Obviously he does have Down syndrome. We know he is going to need help. So, our goal is for him to stay in general education all the way through the rest of his scholastic career, because he is going to one day be in society, and he needs to know and learn and grow as his peers do, so that when he's 18, 19, 20, and he's out in the real world, he's already accustomed to that. Unfortunately, a lot of times, there's cases where people are in the special ed their whole way through, and then, they graduate, and now they have to go out into the real world, and they're not accustomed to it. So at least for Mateo, we want him to be in as much general education as possible, and we're willing to fight for that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you have an advocate, because I'm in the process myself, as I told you before we started, of becoming an advocate for people, persons with disabilities, whatever case may be. And you can agree or disagree with me on this, Chris. Do you feel that there needs to be more advocacy approaches? Because to me, it doesn't seem like there's much.
Well, I think, thank God for Facebook, because we really didn't know who to contact or where to go. But because there's different forums, different groups that you can join, you throw out a question, hey, I need an advocate for Down syndrome, or I need an advocate for someone with autism. You'll get a lot of good suggestions, and the names that keep coming up, that keep getting suggested by people, tend to be the ones that are really good at what they do. And the school districts come armed with lawyers and attorneys. And if you come armed with an advocate who's probably just as good, knowing the law in this specific case, you're on equal footing. So finding an advocate that really knows their stuff levels the playing field, I think. And, just having awareness out there that you can find an advocate, and it's not something crazy expensive like an attorney would be, but it is something that can be just as powerful.
Yeah, and you want the power, and you want to feel comfortable that your kid's being treated just just as anyone else would be or should be. And once again, getting Mateo involved so he's not in that enclosed environment where he's with the same group. I hate to say 24 hours a day, but that's basically what it is. You're with the same group all the time. You're not really with it. I mean, you're not really with anyone else. So, friends, I highly encourage it. Chris has encouraged it. If you want, please, 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 please get your child involved in regular ed. It's so necessary.
Yeah, and I would also say start early as possible. We were fortunate enough to start in kindergarten, and I realize it may be tougher for some folks in the older grades to, transition. But regardless, at some point they are going to have to transition into society. And, we think school is a great training ground for that, growing up and learning things the same time as their peers. But, also having support in the classrooms with an aide or special education teacher is important as well. But for us, making sure Mateo is in the general education for his entire career, that's our number one goal. because we believe that the skills he will learn that aren't necessarily taught, the arithmetic and the English and the science and the social studies, those are important, but it's the in between socialization and just surviving and thriving in an environment with other human beings is really what's going to help him in the long term.
Yeah, and I even heard, not to jump off track a little bit. Of course, doing these advocacy courses that I've had, uh, I had a person from the Department of Ed do or I should say, I watched a person from the Department of Education in New Jersey do a presentation, and he even said, and this may be a good thought for you a few years down the line, Chris, is to get your child involved in his or her IEP by the age of 10 to 12 years of age. And I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, if Mateo is, able to understand and really grasp what an IEP is and how it can help him, yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure Mateo is as prepared as possible for the future. Like I said, one day we may not be here, his brothers will be here, but we want to know that he is fully prepared to thrive in society, hold down a job, live on his own, who knows, get married, whatever he wants to accomplish in life. It's our job to prepare him for that. And we've literally started since the day he was born.
And that's very, 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 very good, because like we've said all night long, please continue advocating. This is why I had Chris here, to teach you folks watching all across this country, how do people advocate? How can you advocate for a child? And I will tell you, and I told this crowd at ACCC this just the other day, advocacy is not easy. You will win, you will lose, you will battle. But please, I've said this many, many, many times tonight, don't give up. Because if you give up, you gotta start all the way over, all over again.
Yeah, and the other thing I would just add to that, Jacob, is that you're not alone. If you go on these Facebook forums, and you'll see, unfortunately, some of the same things happening over and over in different school districts. And so a lot of these issues have been dealt with in other ways or in other districts, and you can learn from them. You can hire the same advocates that fought those battles to fight your battles, and then just share that knowledge, when you're successful. So for us, we didn't know who Sarah Jo was, but she came highly recommended, and we used her, and she fought alongside of us to get the result that we wanted. And now we recommend her to everybody that has a similar problem or needs an advocate for someone with Down syndrome. And this is her life's work. So we're trying to just spread the blessing that we had with others, so that they can fight the same fight and get the same results.
Yeah, and it's wonderful, as I said, with you and your wife and the advocate and your family are doing, because there needs to be more of it. Chris is giving you wonderful advice tonight. Friends, before I leave with my closing message, please, 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 please advocate, advocate, advocate. If you do not speak up through the school districts, they don't know how to help you. Please, please, please speak up. If you would like any more information, Chris, on the National Down Syndrome Society, advocacy or anything like that, how can people do that?
They can call or text my cell phone, 609-290-0845.
Alrighty, friends, please, please donate. If Chris just gave you his contact, if you need help, please reach out. Just a friendly reminder, please donate. Faces needs your support. These organizations need you. They've had a rough couple of years. Of, uh, I'm biting my tongue as this is coming out of my mouth. I hope COVID is on its way out. I think we all do. Please donate. Please, please donate. Thank you.